Okay, welcome to the Habits of Health Book Club. And in this episode, we're going to go through chapter 2.12. It's going over the EAT program, a very lengthy chapter indeed. Who would like to kick us off and start giving us some takeaways? Eric. No. I'm just kidding, man.
Yes, as we discussed, eating is good.
Actually, I was talking about this with Richard. I'll start earlier this week about how on page 381, he says by the time we reach our 60s, the average number of steps we take in a day declines by as much as 25%. That's incredible. So it's even more important to be intentional, not just with the need, but with exercise. I really like that thing.
It's funny that you have that part highlighted because that's exactly the very first thing and only thing on that page that I have highlighted too. It makes you wonder about how important it is just to get in your steps anyways, as I have not been reaching my goals of 10,000 steps a day. You know what I mean? So now it's like, well, crap, I need to get on it after reading this one.
Well, Andrew and I have discussed that 10,000 steps is a pretty arbitrary goal as well. I'd set mine at about 7,500 and been working toward it and been satisfying it on a regular basis. But for a long time with the job I had and the other responsibilities I've had, I suspect that there were a lot of days that I didn't get in 5,000 steps. And things have certainly loosened up, and I've been able to do more exercising. And now on a regular basis, I'll hit the 10,000, or some days I'll even get 15, 20,000 in. But
it's amazing.
I love that this chapter really just talks about doing like the 30 minutes even, just starting with that a day and not really like a steps goal. It's just like if we can just focus on the 30 minutes of like moderate walking and incorporating that, I think that's so much more doable when we're talking to clients who've mastered, even ourselves really as clients, but like when we've mastered NEAT or at least incorporated those things, it's like, okay, you're ready for some like more intentional exercise. There goes my kid. But like 30 minutes, can we just focus on 30 minutes of like a healthy pace of walking,
Well, it seems like, the 30 minutes should be doable for anybody that's got any physical limitations even. But I know for me, in order to get the 10,000 steps in, that's taken, as an apartment dweller, that takes about an hour rather than half an hour. And sometimes it's broken up.
Now, I think that's a good point, though, that you're making, Richard, is that it's okay to break it up, right? I mean, if it's like 15 minutes, as long as you're getting that 30 minutes within your day, wherever it is, I think that's just as a good job as any doing it in one section.
There's some real good research out there indicating that 3 1-hour sessions of getting your heart pumping, not strenuous, but pretty steady exercise is good for the brain. And that has been duplicated in a number of studies. And I'm trying to live up to that at least 3 1-hour sessions a week, and most of the time it's more than that.
I like that. And they talked about the Shinrin Yoku, the bath in the forest, which I've been listening to a book called Stillness is the Key. And I was just listening about this yesterday. And they were actually talking about the physical activity of the steps, like how it increases blood flow, like just like what Richard was just talking about there. But as far as breaking it up, I mean, I think you guys tell me if I'm wrong here, but like, I mean, the NEAT program is all about that. Like, whatever, get your steps whenever you can. Obviously, that's great. You get the activity, you're burning calories. But then the EAT program is the actual exercise program. So kind of intentionally getting in some time, probably all at once, in a more structured exercise situation. I mean, is that the difference?
Yes. For
yeah.
sure.
It's all about planned activity, right? You're going to set a time and a place of where you're going to work out for an X amount of time, whether it's 20 to 30 minutes, you know. I mean, he even says 20 minutes. Like, I believe that's doable for anybody who has the NEAT already down and incorporated in their life.
Yeah, and this is like 30 minutes a day of moderate activity. So he was talking about walking when it came to like cardiovascular health, but totally like nail on the head. It's just like that intentional 30 minutes. So yeah, if you like actually want to get to 10,000 steps, which isn't necessarily a goal of mine, it's just like I want to go on a daily walk, and so I should like focus on 30 minutes if I'm going to do a family walk, because that's a good planned exercise for me for 30 minutes. But if I do want to get 10,000 steps, that might mean that maybe I will do a second 30-minute walk later that day, and it's another planned activity, I guess. But
I like setting up regular routes that I walk so that I know approximately how many steps I'm going to be getting in, depending on which route I take.
I had also marked in here about the old cars. It's on the sidebar of 382, where he talks about how he walked down the road and there's a bunch of old cars. And, you know, I mean, he goes into a little bit more about, you know, protecting the planet from overconsumption and stuff and doing the maintenance of it. But it got me to thinking too, like how he says, taking better care of our bodies, and as an added benefit, lessening the tremendous burden, you know, on our medical care system. But my whole thought process was, why are we taking better care of our cars than our own bodies in some sense? You know, what other things are we taking care of more than we're taking care of ourselves? And so I think that was just a really kind of cool little insert that he did there.
That's a good point. And like we stay away from politics, but like shouldn't that be our political position? Like maybe that's our political movement at Optavia. It's like, hey, if we want to improve the healthcare system, then let's all get healthier. I mean, it's a novel idea.
Who'd have thought?
Just to add on to all that stuff here, on page 382, as he's talking about the goals of motion, in the little bottom there says our movement system has 3 goals: energy expenditure, cardiovascular health, and muscular health. And then he starts to break it down right thereafter, where he says what he used to do as a doctor, our body does naturally. Healthy systems deliver oxygen blood to all the cells of the body. And I guess he was trying to make that happen on the operating table back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how he broke it out, the importance of, you know, doing lifting versus like aerobic activity, like, and, you know, only doing a total of 75 minutes, like a week, like aerobic activity, just 3 days a week. And then also the importance of lifting and how many calories that actually burns after, and the benefits that it actually produces after the workout as well. And the importance of stretching and the cooling down after you work out. Because I think a lot of people, I know for myself, like that's a struggle for me sometimes when I'm working out at the gym. I'm like, okay, I'm done, I'm just going to go, instead of cooling down and reducing my heart rate. And also stretching, the importance of, stretching our muscles and our body before and after.
I think we're all that way.
And I really struggle with that. Like, I'm more likely to go do the exercise than to do the stretching.
Yeah. I've been trying to be more cautious, or like aware that I'm stretching after my workout. And now after reading this, I'm like, oh, I've got to do a cool down, because I haven't been doing cool downs. Like, I'll just work out and then my heart rate might be up to 100 or something, and I'll grab my stuff and get my kid and go.
The only time you do a cool down is when the treadmill makes me.
Sorry.
Huh?
No, go ahead.
I was just asking, what does it say about like the benefits? I mean, I know, like, generally speaking, stretching is supposed to keep us from injuries and stuff, but what did he talk about as far as the cool down and stretching and how that plays in?
Just on page 384.
Yeah, it's on 384. Just after each session, he's talking about the musculoskeletal and cardiovascular system needs to return to the baseline state. And then he just goes into saying how he'll teach you some great cool down and stretching workout.
I think it is a lot to do with like the heart rate too. Like I notice a huge difference, because I've been trying to do this lately too, is like starting with just like a warm up and like getting my body loose so that I have like a more full range of motion and I'm stretched out and like my body's warm and I can like feel it. I feel the difference as I'm getting like exercise going, because I'm not like stiff or, just going straight into it. And then afterwards, like as you're kind of out of breath and finishing your workout, like slowing your heart rate back down, like in like a good way, is just kind of getting you back to those baselines I feel like he's speaking to.
When we were kids, we were told to stretch before we did any working out. And then as I got older, and then it was, no, we need to go do some exercise and then we're going to stretch. And that's kind of what he says here, because you don't want to get injured. That's why we're stretching.
Maybe we're supposed to do both. I don't know. I need to see the benefit. Like, I mean, everything that drives me, we talk about whys and stuff. Of course, the overall why, like you can do something you don't even recognize as being helpful, but you need someone to prove it to you. I mean, when I started riding the bike a lot, like I just wasn't stretching and I got shin splints and it was painful. So, for a little while I was like, oh, well, that helped me to stretch, because I recognized that I didn't want to go through that pain anymore. But unfortunately, then I let go of it and I found that I wasn't having that pain anymore. So now I'm firmly still in that spot of like, why bother stretching? I mean, like, why do I have to? We need to invite Dr. A to come on and like shake his finger and tell us exactly why stretching is super crucial to the process, because that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, is it just to prevent injury, or is it beneficial to the healing and building muscle process? I don't understand it very well.
Sounds like a lot of you folks are going to gyms. Don't they have trained personnel there that can coach you with that?
Coaches? Gosh, who would hire a coach? I don't go to the gym. I do my own thing, just bike riding and around the house. But one day, when I'm at my goal weight, I will.
There is actual reason, Eric, behind that, and that is that when you're prior to stretching, you're opening up your muscles, to get the blood flowing, because that's what happens when you start going, right? When you start working out, you're building that blood pressure up, your heart's pumping, you're getting oxygen, and you're getting your blood flowing. So what that does is opens it up so that it can easily get in there, because when you're just doing your everyday action, all of your muscles are super, super tight. And so before an exercise, you're opening it and releasing it. The reason why you stretch after is because you build up acid in your muscles. And so by stretching that out again, you're then releasing those muscles to open up to start healing. Because not only while you're doing the workout process, but you're tearing that muscle open to reheal, and that's where the muscle gain happens. So there is really important, and yes, it is super safe. It's a lot safer. You're not going to hurt yourself as much. There is the whole gamut of reasons why stretching before and after is actually really important.
I love it. I'm going to try to keep that in mind.
Has anybody tried Tai Chi?
Oh, I'm very interested in doing it. I saw someone doing it at the beach the other day, but I want to do, Richard, like I want to do it in the application. Like it's hard to find, but you can find the people who actually teach Tai Chi as a martial art, like an actual self-defense situation. I'm interested in that.
Yeah, there's I've got a program that I bought, been sitting on the shelf. I haven't even opened it up. It's called Tai Chi. And it's basically Tai Chi, but with some strength exercises along with it. And it's supposed to really help balance as well. And
sounds awesome.
I'm going to have to give that a shot one of these days.
Let us know, man. I love the idea of it. Every time I see someone like on the beach doing Tai Chi, I'm like, I want that. I don't even care. Like, just play some like music in the back and give me some bonsai trees. Like, I want to do that. I can do that for like, I just want to do that for like 5 hours, like a cameo in Karate Kid or something.
You want to play with a sword.
Yes, definitely. I'm all about the swords.
On the bottom of page 388, he says, as you step up your intensity, because he's talking about picking up the pace of your exercise. He says, if you're unable to carry a conversation, slow down, which was interesting because one of the reasons in the Army that we do cadences is because we want to increase our lung capacity, help us run longer so we sing when we run. And, but I guess as you're getting started, you don't want to overwhelm yourself.
Can you do one of those for us, Andrew?
I don't even remember the cadences anymore. But I'm sure I could find them for you if you want to. But yeah, it was the exact opposite reason. They had us talk. They had us sing because that made us even stronger with our lungs.
It builds your lung pressure up for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, but you skipped over, and Eric talked about it, the Shinrin-Yoku. Okay, this was speaking my language. I was like all about the forest walking and the forest running. That is like my Zen place. And so when he was talking about how, you know, when you're visiting or when you're in there, that all of these health benefits happen, I was like, yes. You rest better, it conserves energy, it slows down your heart rate while you're increasing intentional or intestinal gland activities. I mean, and then down a little bit more, he talks about how we're, you know, overexposure to chemicals and responses and all of these crazy things and chronic stress and depression and anxiety, and how when you're actually doing, you know, going into the forest, that you're getting the natural chemicals secreted by the evergreen trees and collectively known as the, I'm going to say it wrong, phytoncide or whatever, that has also been associated with improvements in the activities of the frontline immune defenders. So in some way you build, you know, I mean, you're getting kind of like a built-in barrier, a natural barrier, you know, to all of these things that we're overexposed to just in life in general. So I was super excited when I was reading this. I was like, yes, it's my jam.
I love that. And this, I was telling you guys, I'm reading this one right now, The the stillness is the key. And it talks about this exact same thing, but I mean, he's kind of focused on in this book about, finding stillness, finding your calm, finding focus, how that all plays into like problem solving and creativity and all this stuff too. So then to see Dr. A talking about it from the physical health standpoint, I mean, it basically sounds like we should all be walking in the forest like very frequently. So I'm all for it.
Yes.
There was a really good program on Nova probably last week about brain waves and how that stillness can be achieved and how it can actually be measured with your brain waves and
cool.
the various brain waves. And well, let's put it this way. There are some Buddhist monks get someplace that none of us are ever going to get.
Right. Well, the whole thing, and not to deviate too far, but I mean, like Andrew, probably all of us, I was going to say Andrew and I, but I think all of us are basically like becoming or are like massive students of habits. And this author, Ryan Holiday, in this book, he's also getting into that. And it's basically, I don't know, like I kind of had this stigma against habits, and I guess this plays into the eat because it's all about making a habit of working out every day, right? But I've had this stigma and this resistance to habits for a really long time. I mean, literally started when I was a kid. Like my mom wanted me to brush my teeth. Like I hate it. Like anything that was a habit that I had to repeat, I felt, number one, it was a chore. I felt, number two, it was monotonous and boring. And I often overlooked, what was the benefit anyway. But he actually makes a really strong case, and I'm sure he's not the first one, of just saying like, hey, you've got all this higher level thinking and ability that, like Richard was just alluding to, that we never even tap into. And one of the ways to get to it is to have more habits. It's like literally imagine how much thinking and how much more you can get done intentionally when you're handing over a lot of things to habit. And even though it's hard to begin with, eventually it becomes an autonomous system. And so when you go and you work out for 30 minutes, like during that time, what are you doing? You're able to think about the situation with your family and the stress at work or, whatever, and come up with solutions or just have peaceful time. Talked about the motion of walking. Like you're not completely blank when you're walking. You're trying not to fall in a pit or something, right? But it's like, it's so automated that, you're really letting your conscious mind kind of wander while you semi-focus on this repetitive thing. Anyway,
that's in that book, Eric? In that book?
Yeah,
that's
dude,
what he kind of talks about.
I'm loving this one.
All right. Well, no, I think he makes a great point. You
get all three of them together.
I know. I remember you bought the combo. Yeah. Well, if you think about it, how much, I mean, on that note, just adding to it, if you think he talks about the working out and thinking, driving, when we do road trips, I answer so many questions that I had, or we brainstorm when I walk with Cindy, and we were doing that all the time. Problem solving all day, working things out, brainstorming. You're right. Absolutely. Like I didn't really associate it to habit though. And the piece of it. That's interesting. That's really,
I've actually been trying to figure out, well, I've developed a habit of listening to audiobooks a lot of times when I'm having this type of activity. And I'm like, well, that's great. And I want to continue doing some of that, but I probably should have a fair amount of time where I'm not doing that. Like, I mean, I'm learning all about the stillness, but you're breaking the stillness by listening to audiobooks. Like you need to have just like whether it's low key music or just listening to the sounds of nature or even the busy streets. Like he talks about Plato and Diogenes, some of these guys, like, I mean, they would do the same thing, like in the city. It's really busy, just walking out, observing everything, and just letting your thoughts deal with your situations.
I think we could all benefit though by spending a little bit more time with nature.
I agree.
Away from the hustle and bustle and just being out with animals and the beauty that is out there.
Definitely.
For sure.
Page 390, the best exercise program is the one that you will do. I guess he tries to start at such a low threshold, to make sure you can do it.
Well, that's a good point though, Andrew, because a lot of times we jump on the freaking, big old huge program plans and we're gonna work out, we're gonna do all this stuff, and then you overreach, you take on way too much, and then we give up. It's the whole baby step concept too. It's like doing something smaller and working towards it. Like his story about the lady doing the push-ups on the wall. You do a couple push-ups on the wall each day, and then you add to it and you add to it. And before you know, you're down on the ground and you're doing 20 push-ups at 89 or however old she was. It's amazing what just doing small little things every single day does for you and how it changes. I mean, we see that in, just doing program itself. Those small changes that we're taking on are huge.
I'm amazed how much a lack of exercise. If I go several days without doing exercise, what it does to my resting heart rate. It goes up big time. And being able to track that is kind of a motivator too.
Yeah, absolutely. You're seeing it. You're
Yep.
paying attention to it.
Richard, do you use like a Apple Watch or how do you track your stuff like that?
Fitbit. I'm really big on Fitbit.
I've got one too, but my wife's got the Apple Watch, and I'm jealous.
They're good and expensive.
Yeah, for sure. But I love what Misty was saying there, and with the habits. I mean, I apply that so much to myself and my kids and my clients. It's like if you can teach someone. I mean, literally, like even with starting 5 and 1. I mean, once in a while you get a client that is they beat themselves up because they just can't seem to stick to 5 and 1. But it's like just what you were saying. It's like find that smallest level, just like he's talking about with the exercise, whatever you would do, whatever you can do, even on a bad day. And let's start with that so that we can celebrate that we did something, even if it's the tiniest thing. We're celebrating that we did it rather than beating ourselves up for not having climbed the mountain. I think so many people, whether it's New Year's or just whenever they just decide, I'm going to change my life. So tomorrow I'm eating nothing but vegetables, and tomorrow I'm drinking a gallon of water, and I'm waking up at 6 a.m. to meditate. And it's like, you're not going to do all that stuff at once, like overnight. It's just not feasible for most people, at least to keep it up. Like, you might do it for a few days, but then what? You fail at doing it, and most importantly, you look at it exactly that way, like a failure.
Right.
I'm always trying to help people, like, hey, what is the minimum amount? Maybe you can't exercise 30 minutes a day. Can you exercise 30 seconds a day? I mean, let's start there.
Yeah, he goes and breaks it down too, and he's kind of got like this thing. But I was looking for something, Eric, that I read that reminded me of you, because he was talking about 45 minutes of intensive bike riding. You burn up to like 450 calories, but then it continues. After you stop, you're still burning up to 190 calories later. I thought that was crazy. I was like, hey, that's Eric.
Yeah, it is. It definitely changes the way I feel for the whole day. I've been trying to think about doing more of that early in the morning. In fact,
Can't find
today I
which
was going to
page
get up
that was
early,
on.
you know.
But later down, or in a few pages further, on 392, he actually talks about it, how you do your upper body and your lower body too, which I know, learning from going to gym work and all that kind of stuff, that you do. And then he's actually got a like a grid, a typical week of habits of motion system. Anybody could, if you're in that stage in your journey, taking that grid and just mimicking it, heck yeah, you're set up. No thought process, you don't have to think about it. Just figure out where you're going to slip those into your day, and there you go. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
Another way he set us all up for success, if we take the grasp right and take it on, do it. I think there is a level of needing to build up to it too. And I also like how he says, if you're not in your healthy weight system or in your healthy weight, not to do it. Like, our goal is to get you into that healthy weight level.
Yeah.
And then add the eat on, because at that point we're doing what he mentions in the beginning, where it's the archaic, where we were doing things all the time. We're working in the fields. We're trying to live, and we don't have that now. And so now, if we add these 30 minutes of intense workout, or this eat system to our day, then we're kind of replicating that in some sense, in addition to all of the minor things that we're doing throughout our day.
Yeah, he stuck enough stuff in there on that NEAT, as he combined it with the EAT, that you could have your whole house clean by the end of the week.
Right?
You start with your closet.
That's what I'm saying.
You're washing your car the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, getting your grocery
and
shopping
every one of those
done.
things can become a habit. Like, we were just,
You don't even think about it. You're just doing it.
We're resistant to it, but like, gosh, all those chores that I personally try to avoid, it's like, man, you just made it into a routine. This book is really getting me sold on that bit. It talks about Winston Churchill. Just all these people. Like, it's just hundreds of examples of these really successful and people that lived in tough times. It talked about Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis, just having restraint and like being in that still place, and how most of these folks had really strong routines that I think I definitely have been resistant to. But I'm like, man,
habit is
I need
everything,
more
man.
routines. Got to build it in.
Yeah, I would never even have connected the dots with habits had I not started the Habits Phelps book. 40 years old, don't even know anything about habits and how they're a real thing and what the benefits of them are. It's ridiculous. This is the type of stuff that we should be learning in school, as we're growing up.
Agreed.
Agreed.
We're actually teaching our kids about it. Yes.
Our kids too, and they don't have a choice because it's all they hear all day long. It's us talking about habits with people. So they definitely look at life a lot differently than I did when I was growing up. But who would have thunk that we'd be talking about how we'd be problem solving just by doing a habit unrelated to the problem solving in our brain? Like, what? Seriously, this is awesome.
You take those habits, you just extrapolate them out anyway. I get so mad at myself looking back on some of my bad habits, because it's just like, how is it not obvious? I always use brushing teeth, but it's like, if you're really good at brushing your teeth, like, you're gonna have great teeth for like your whole life. And if you pick up a cigarette, and that becomes a habit, like you're doing the opposite. Like you're making yourself go in the wrong direction. So they just talk about being intentional and careful with a habit. It's just like, think long and hard about that. Like you would think about a financial decision or something. Anything that you're doing, what is this going to mean when repeated over and over?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that you say brushing teeth, and that's a great analogy, but in the United States, that used to not be a habit. And so everybody had horrible teeth, and it was like literally a national crisis until they started. Well, we read that in one of our books that we read, but I actually bought the guy.
The whale that ate the fish that ate the whale gets into that guy. Is that the book?
Well, the guy who created the guy who was a marketer for Pepsodent back in the day. Yeah, and how well, he takes a lot of credit for the fact that we all brush our teeth today because of connecting sensations of what they put in the database and stuff like that meant. But actually,
we're just lucky it was a positive thing. I mean, he did it for marketing and money reasons.
Yeah.
Like, it could have just as easily been, they did the exact same thing with like Marlboros. I mean,
yeah. No, this is true. This is true. Trying to be on a positive note here, Derek.
No, I mean, I love it.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm just saying that, like I don't. The guy is not a philanthropic person necessarily, but it's definitely shows the effectiveness and how we can change literally the whole society. I mean, like that. I mean, it went from like hardly anybody brushing their teeth to 90% of people brushing their teeth daily in what, like less than 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, what has Steve Jobs done for us?
Yeah.
That's true.
Or Jeff Bezos, for that matter.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. And that's taken 15 years, 20 years
or less.
Bezos. Yeah.
I mean, the internet basically is less than 20 years old.
It came out before I went to. No, it's about 25. We're probably coming on 30 now because
it was around. A teenager. I mean, but it did not really in the iteration we talk about.
No, yeah,
till the early 2000s.
But
we had like web crawler and
AOL. Yeah, no, there was no other internet. It was only AOL. Nobody internet existed.
All the young people listening now are like, "What are they talking about?" It's like
a
busy
right.
Signal. They have no idea what a busy signal is.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah, we're kind of at the end, based on everything we talked about of this chapter. I mean, he talks about high intensity interval training. But yeah, most of this stuff. He did a good job. It was an
interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have anything they wanted to add?
Next chapter is healthy sleep. I'm going to do some research on that one.
Oh yeah. Richard's going to master that one before we get to it. Ooh, that's a big chapter too. Jeez.
Well, we've had, Andrew and I have had lots of talks about my rebellion against habits because I have been governed by habits for most of my life. And when I retired and didn't have any responsibilities anymore, it was just kind of screw it. I'm not doing this. I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Richard, you sound like me. I understand.
I'm out of harness now, and I'm going to just go where I want to and stop when I want to and eat a little grass if I want to. Kick people.
That's what I'm loving about this book, Richard. Literally, I mean, if nothing else, it's making a really strong play. And it's funny because I tell it to other coaches all the time when I talk about structure. I'm like, man, I rebelled hard against having structure in my life after I left the regular workforce because I was like, no way. Like now I'm this entrepreneur and I do what I want when I want it. But structure actually gave me the freedom that I have. Like it's what allows me to have the time to do the things that I love to do. And the Stillness is the Key book is really showing me that applies not only to like time structure, but just to routines in general. And I'm like, oh, I've been looking at these all the time as something for me to fight and say no to, but maybe it's actually the key to like feeling better and having more time to be more, contemplative about things and stuff like that. So
does it talk about in that book why people fight structure or stillness?
Not yet, but I've seen. I would be interested to see if they.
I want to know why, other than I know Richard told me why he rebels, and you told me why you rebel to it, because I think there's a misconception for you as to what it can do. I don't think Richard cares about the misconception. He's like, I'm gonna do what I want still. It's time to be off the leash, he says, or the harness. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I'm just curious. We do have a resistance to that if we don't have to have it, right? To do what we want to do.
Well, that's what that book's doing for me, is it's showing me the value, because I mean, we do what we want. I mean, like I tell people all the time, like, human beings are fantastic at getting what we want and doing what we want. Anytime people say, oh, well, I didn't do this thing that I wanted to do, it's like, no, you didn't. I mean, if you wanted to do it, you would have done it. I mean, it's that simple. So with routines, much as I try to tell myself they're healthy, it's like, well, but are they? I mean, what do they do for me? So that book's helping me a lot on that front, because it's like, oh, look at all these people in history and all these examples. Of, like, maybe there's some value to this that I never recognized.
Yeah, he does a good job of pulling in stories to validate his point from history, and he's done a good job in all of his books with that. I admire that about him. All right, well, as we wrap up here, I'd love to take a picture of everybody. If you're still in front of your camera, to put yourself on camera so I can take a picture. Here she is. All right, Ashley, coming on? Maybe not. All right, everybody smile. Sweet. Awesome, you guys. Well, good, really good book club, good turnout. Glad everybody was able to join us. I definitely got some different perspectives. I didn't know we were going to be talking about stillness is the key today. I love how some of these. No, that's a good thing, because I think that's what a good book club would do, is generate conversation about other things related to what Dr. A talks about.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it was a pretty short chapter, so that's cool. I appreciate everybody's input. Richard, Misty, Ashley, Andrew,